Mrs. Jolly's Joke Shop by Alan Alberg, with pictures by Colin McNaughton. I say. Have you heard the story of Mrs. Jolly's Joke Shop? No? Well, here it is. One morning, Mrs. Jolly sat up in bed. She heard a knock at the door. Knock, knock!
Who's there?
Said Mrs. Jolly. Boo! Said a voice.
Boo-hoo!
Said Mrs. Jolly. There's no need to cry, said the voice. It's only a joke. And in came Mr. Jolly with a cup of tea. Mrs. Jolly had a laugh. She drank her tea and came downstairs for breakfast. In the kitchen, she heard a voice from under the table.
What's bread?
Said the voice.
Raw toast,
Said Mrs. Jolly. And out popped Jennifer Jolly with a plate of toast and honey. Mrs. Jolly had another laugh. She ate her toast and honey and went upstairs to get dressed. At 9 o'clock, Mrs. Jolly put on her funny nose and her silly hat and went to work in the joke shop. In Mrs. Jolly's joke shop, there were lots of funny noses and silly hats. Also lots of water pistols, water flowers, and water rings. There were squeaky cushions and plastic spiders and lots of jokes. At 9:10, the first customer came in. He bought a funny nose, a silly hat, and a joke about teddy bears.
A jolly joke card. Question. How do you start a teddy bear race? Answer. Ready, Teddy, go!
At 9:30, the second customer came in. She bought a funny nose, a silly hat, and a joke about rabbits.
A jolly joke card. Question. What do you get if you pour boiling water down a rabbit hole? Answer. Hot cross bunnies.
At 10:30, the window cleaner came in, straight through the window. His ladder had broken. At 12 o'clock, Jennifer Jolly came home for her lunch. Mr. and Mrs. Jolly had theirs too.
What's white on the outside, green on the inside, and hops?
Said Jennifer. And Mrs. Jolly laughed and said,
a frog sandwich.
Croak, croak.
Hop it.
At 1:30, Jennifer Jolly went back to school.
Now, Jennifer,
said her teacher,
if I had 5 oranges in one hand and 4 in the other, what would I have?
Big hands, miss.
said Jennifer.
I'll give you big hands in a minute.
At 2 o'clock, Mr. Jolly went shopping. He went to a pet shop to get a present for Mrs. Jolly. I want a parrot for my wife, he said.
Sorry, sir,
said the pet shop lady.
we don't do swaps. Pieces of 8.
At 3 o'clock, a robber came into Mrs. Jolly's joke shop. He pointed his finger at Mrs. Jolly. This is a muck-up, he said.
Don't you mean a stick-up?
Said Mrs. Jolly. No, said the robber. A muck-up. I forgot my gun. And out he went. At 4 o'clock, Jennifer Jolly came home for her tea. Mr. and Mrs. Jolly had theirs too. and the parrot had his.
"What's the best thing to put into a pie?"
said Mrs. Jolly. And the parrot said,
"Your beak."
At 5 o'clock, it began to rain. At 6 o'clock, it was still raining. And at 7, and at 7:30. At 8 o'clock, the riverbank broke and the town was flooded. The Jolly family climbed onto the roof. "What goes up when the rain comes down?" said Mr. Jolly.
"An umbrella,"
Mrs. Jolly said. At 9 o'clock, there was a small earthquake, and the chimneys on the roof fell off.
"What did the big chimney say to the little chimney?"
said Jennifer.
"You're too young to smoke,"
Mr. and Mrs. Jolly said. A few days later, when the rain and floods had gone, and the house was clean again, and the window was mended, Mrs. Jolly put on her funny nose and her silly hat and went to work in the joke shop. At 9:05, there was a knock at the door. "Knock, knock,"
"Who's there?"
said Mrs. Jolly. "Cows go," said a voice.
"Cows go who?"
said Mrs. Jolly. "No, cows go moo," said the voice. And in came the milkman. Mrs. Jolly laughed.
"2 pints, please,"
she said, and she went into the kitchen to make a pot of tea.
"Jolly, put the kettle on."
The end.